everybody! I'm here today to tell you about 3 signs of a cheap watch. In this video, I'll be going over some things that you should look for with regards to whether or not you have a cheap watch. Now, these are usually telltale signs of cheap watches. Let's get right into the video. These 2 watches that I have in my hands are not cheap watches. They're not what I consider to be cheap watches, at least. They might be cheap to you, but they're definitely not cheap to me. These are very valuable watches, but I'm just using them as examples because they don't have the features that I'm going to tell you about, okay? So, once again, these are not cheap watches. I just want to make that very clear at the beginning of the video, okay? But I will be using them as examples. So, the first sign of a cheap watch is a generic design, okay? Now, a lot of times what watch companies will do is they'll end up basically just taking a regular design and then they slap their logo on it. That's a sign of a cheap watch. Now, if you look at this design right here, you can see that it actually has a few different various eyes in it. They're non-functional eyes, but this is not an example of a generic design, okay? You can see that the logo is also here in the 3 position, and it also has a 9 over there. A generic design would be just lines all around the watch, and then the logo is just glued somewhere. And I have other watches that are cheaper, but I don't want to include them in the video because I don't want to call out the companies or anything like that. Now, this one right here, with your immediate look, you might think that it's a generic design. I'm going to try and bring it close to the camera without any glare. I don't know if you can see this. It has lines all around, but then the logo is actually in the 6th position. Okay? A generic design would be just lines all around and then the logo is just somewhere in the middle. Because, you know, any company can just take their logo, glue it down, and they're good to go. So this is an example of something that you might perceive as a generic design, but it's not. It's hard to tell with the lighting, but basically this has lines all around, but then the actual logo is in the 6th position. I don't know if you can see that, but a generic design would be just lines around and the logo somewhere on the middle of the dial. Okay? The second factor is that the watch is too lightweight. Now, good watches can be lightweight, but they won't be too lightweight. This watch is significantly heavy, obviously because of its size, but the movement inside is a key factor in the weight, okay? A good movement will be quite heavy. This watch, even though it's thinner, is actually just as heavy as this one. These are both heavy watches. You can see the way that they flop around, they're heavy. Certain watches will be extremely lightweight, like they're going to be able to just be tossed around. You can see these are heavy watches. A good watch with a heavy movement will be pretty weighty with regards to its weight. It'll have a good amount of weight to it. You actually feel like you're wearing something on your wrist. If it's too light, you should be alarmed. It might have an extremely cheap movement inside. The third factor, this is probably the biggest factor, is the quality of the leather, okay? I've owned both of these watches for, I don't know, many years. I would say probably close to 5 years for the most part. Around 5 years, I'm going to assume roughly that I've owned both of these watches. I got them roughly the same time. The leather, and I've worn these easily 100 times each, for sure 100 times each. Look at the quality of the leather. Mint condition, okay? Literally, like it looks like it's still brand new. No flaking, no peeling, mint condition. Look at the quality of this leather right here. Mint condition, okay? Mint crisp condition. These are great watches. They're pricey watches. They're not 10,000 bucks, but they're not cheap watches by any means. And if you look right here, it says genuine leather right over there. Key factor, okay? Genuine leather right over there. Key factor. So basically, you know, and another thing, it says 24. It tells you the size of the band. Like another little thing, like if this was a cheap generic band, it might use bonded leather, let's say. It might be flaking off after 10 or 15 wears. And I have watches like that. They just flake off. I take them off my wrist. There's leather all over my wrist. If your watch has flaking leather on the band, it definitely means the band is cheap, but it probably means that the watch is cheap as well. So these are examples of watches that are not cheap, once again, but I've told you what to look for in watches that are cheap. The only reason I didn't include cheap watches in this video is because I didn't want to call out the companies on being cheap watches. Also, look at the price. If your watch has a a really cheap price tag, it's probably a cheap watch. It is what it is. You're not going to get a deal in life here. It is what it is. So you're going to have to pay to play, as they say. You're going to have to pay if you want a good watch. Okay? Doesn't have to be 10,000 bucks, but it's probably going to be 150, 200 bucks for a solid watch. Even $100, you're looking at a watch that will last you a long time. And that's it. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down below as a comment. And of course, be sure to subscribe for more great videos just like this one. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.